Just signed divorce papers. My ex is already buying his mistress a 50 million villa. Swiping the card. Paying all cash. The saleswoman. Sorry, all 5 of your cards have been frozen. The clerk's office marble floor reflected pale light. On the divorce settlement, the ink of Gumingyuan's 3 characters hadn't even dried. He stood up, adjusted his cuffs, grabbed his briefcase, and turned toward the door. His leather shoes echoed, fading away step by step, disappearing at the end of the corridor. He didn't look back. Not one extra word. He didn't even spare me a single glance. 6 years of marriage, over. I screwed the cap back onto my pen, put it in my bag, and pushed open the door on the other side. The March sunlight crashed down on me without warning, harsh enough to sting my eyes. I stood on the steps for a moment, took out my phone, found a number, and hit dial. Mr. Shen. It's time to pull the trigger. Silence on the other end for 2 seconds. Then a steady voice. Understood, Miss Su. All 5 cards. Before 3 o'clock this afternoon, everything will be in place. Any bank counter he visits, any card he tries to swipe, it will all come back frozen. Got it. Thanks. I hung up, hailed a cab, and gave the address of my company. I leaned against the window, watching the plane trees on the roadside slide past one by one. I felt nothing at all. Like finally letting out a breath I'd held for ages. It didn't hurt. I was just tired. Outside, my city of 10 years, towers everywhere. Traffic flowing. Inside every office building. Stories unfolded, someone signing a billion-dollar deal. Someone thrown out onto the street, someone just falling in love. Someone tearing apart their last shred of dignity. And me. Su Young. 32 years old. Just signed the divorce papers, a bank card in my pocket. Inside it, 6 years of shared savings. 2.8 million. And a 4-year-old Audi. That's the math he did for me. That's everything I'm supposedly owed. The cab driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, probably trying to figure out why this woman in a camel-colored coat, with perfect makeup, was hailing a cab. Outside the city clerk's office. I didn't react. I turned my gaze back to the window. My phone screen lit up. A message from my assistant, Miss Su. Mr. Yi from Stellar Bay says this afternoon. A major client wants Building C, Unit 1. All cash. He'd like you to be there if possible. I replied with one word, okay. The car merged onto the main road. I closed my eyes. And in my mind, the night from 6 years ago surfaced. He sat across, spreading his proposal on the table. His eyes full of fire. He said, Su Young. You put in 3 million, and I'll give you 30% equity. Once public, a tenfold return. He smiled. 2 faint dimples. The picture of sincerity. I believed him. Not because I thought the money could double. I believed our future. Together. His gaze met mine. I finally got it. That light hunted the room's prize. And the most valuable thing tends to be replaced. My name is Su Young. I'm 32 years old. When I met Gu Mingyuan, I was 28, financial controller at a public company. Salary wasn't huge, but it was stable. Add in my savings from years of investing on the side, and I had about 4 million in liquid cash. Gu Mingyuan was 2 years older than me. He quit to start his own firm. He had a project. What he lacked was seed capital. We met at an industry networking event. He approached me first. When he handed me his card, his fingers were long and clean, nails neatly trimmed. He said, Director Su, I've heard a lot about you. I have a project I'd love your input on. Back then, he was still wearing an off-the-rack suit, tie slightly crooked. But he had an energy about him. Standing among a crowd of greasy middle-aged bosses, he looked like a young sapling that had just broken through. We arranged dinner for the next evening. He chose a quiet Japanese restaurant. Just the 2 of us. In a private room. He spread out his business proposal. We went page by page, analysis to moats. Supply chains to profits. Flawless logic. The data was solid. I'd spent a decade in finance. I'd seen plenty of pitches that were nothing but hot air. This one was different. Every number could be traced to a source. Every pathway had a concrete implementation plan. Suyang. He said my name. Not Director Su. Suyang. With a deliberate hint of intimacy in his voice. Finance background, you get supply chains. You understand capital flow. You understand risk control. I need someone like you. Not just your money. I need your mind. That was a good line. Not just my money. But my mind too. A man telling a woman. Her mind wins over beauty, 1,000-fold. I'll admit it. He got to me. Not in the way a naive girl gets swept up by sweet talk. It was a rational, calculated kind of recognition. This person. This project. This investment. Worth it. Mom saw it differently. When I brought him home for dinner. My mom spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen. She made a table full of dishes. Gu Mingyuan was very polite. Hello, Auntie, he said, with fruit and wine. During dinner, he kept praising my mom's cooking. My mom was smiling, but I could tell. Her eyes were watching him the whole time. After dinner, he left. My mom pulled me onto the sofa. She sat there in silence for a while. Ruru, this man's eyes are too shifty. You can't count on him. Mom, you don't even know him. I've lived 60 years. I don't misread people. When he looks at you. His eyes calculated numbers, not love. I ignored it. After I went back, I took the 3 million I'd saved over the years. And transferred it into his company's account. That night. He sent me a message. Just 2 words. Thank you. Row. Followed by a hug emoji. I stared at that emoji for a long time. A warmth welled up in my chest. 3 million was every cent I had. Money I'd saved from age 23 to 28. 5 years of pinching pennies, investing, managing my finances. Scraping every dollar. Handing it all to him. I wasn't just giving him money. I was giving him my trust. My future. Everything I'd bet on my own judgment. What happened after? Was like every startup story. Twists and turns. Valleys. And unexpected breakthroughs. That first year. We rented 2 desks in a shared office space. He handled sales. I did the books. We often worked until 11 or midnight. Sometimes. He'd drag home, collapsing from exhaustion. I'd make him a cup of tea. He'd take the cup. And hold my hand. Ruru, once the company takes off. I'm going to give you the best house, the best car. The best life. Back then, his hands were rough. Dirt from hauling boxes still caught under his fingernails. But when he said those words, his eyes were bright. So bright. The early days were brutal. The supply chain business. Sounds impressive from the outside. Up close, it's all grunt work. Those first 6 months. We only got the scraps nobody else wanted. Margins thin as paper. By the time you closed a deal. After costs, sometimes it barely covered gas. Gu Mingyuan left early and came home late every day. Sometimes not until 3 in the morning. Reeking of smoke and exhaustion. It broke my heart. I'd get up at 6 to make him breakfast. Fried eggs, warm milk, toast. Laid out on the dining table. With a note that said you've got this or today. Good things are coming. Back then, he still replied to my messages. Sometimes it was a photo of street-side breakfast, other times. Just a text saying, hang in there, wifey. On weekends, he'd carve out half a day. To take me to a small park nearby. He'd hold my hand. As we walked under the plane trees, saying once we had money. He'd take me to the Maldives, to Europe. To every place I'd ever wanted to go. I leaned on his shoulder. It was all worth it. The company took off. In the second year. We won an outsourcing deal with a mid-sized manufacturer. The deal wasn't huge, but it was. Our first client to come to us on their own. After that. Word of mouth spread. Clients came one after another. We moved from a shared co-working space into a proper office building. We hired our first employee, then a second. Then a third. In year 3, annual revenue. Broke 20 million. We traded up to a nicer car. Rented a bigger apartment. Gu Mingyuan started wearing custom-tailored shirts. An Omega watch appeared on his wrist. His business dinners grew more frequent. He came home later and later. Sometimes. I'd wait up for him into the dead of night, hearing the lock turn. He'd stumble through the door reeking of alcohol, tie askew. Look at me with glassy eyes, mutter, "I'm going to bed," and stagger into the bedroom. I'd stand in the living room, staring at the trail of footprints he left behind, stretching from the entryway all the way to the bedroom. Like a winding river. I didn't know where that river ended, but I could feel it drifting further and further away from me. Year 4. The company landed several major clients. Annual revenue shot past 100 million. Guming Yuan bought our first real luxury home. Over 200 SQM in Prime City, on moving day. He stood on the balcony, pointed at the distant skyline, and said, "Roro, look. This is the kingdom we built." I stood beside him, gazing at the city lights, but inside, I felt hollow. His arm was around my shoulders. His hand was warm, but I felt something missing from that embrace. I couldn't name it. Just a feeling. He wasn't holding Suyang. He held the partner who'd endured the hardest years. The woman who'd put up 3 million. When he had nothing. A symbol. A monument. Not a person. I started noticing small changes. He got a new phone. Set up fingerprint lock. He'd never used a passcode before. When he took calls, he'd step onto the balcony, lower his voice. And after hanging up, he'd wait a beat before coming back in. His WeChat chat history was always empty. Like someone wiped it clean on a regular basis. Once, I caught a glimpse of his phone screen lighting up. A message popped up from a contact named XIN. 2 words only, "missing you." My hand froze for a second. But I didn't unlock his phone. I told myself. Maybe she was a client, maybe just a friend. Maybe it was nothing. I chose to trust. Or rather, I chose to look the other way. That autumn, the company held its first annual gala. Only clients and partners were invited. Inside a 5-star hotel ballroom, chandeliers blazing. Guming Yuan stood on stage in a sharply tailored black suit, delivering the year-end summary with polished ease. Applause rolled through the room. I sat in the front row, VIP section, wearing the custom gown he'd had someone order for me. A gracious smile fixed on my face. After the gala, he took me table to table for toasts. At every table, he knew everyone's name, chatting about industry trends or the latest news. I followed behind him, glass in hand, smile never once slipping. People praised us as a loving couple. The industry's model marriage. He laughed, arm around my waist. Of course. Without Roro, I wouldn't be standing here today. His hand pressed against my waist. His palm was warm, but all I felt in that spot was a block of ice. In the car on the way home that night, he leaned back with his eyes closed, phone resting on his thigh. The screen lit up. I instinctively glanced over. Another message from that contact named XIN. "Who is that woman on stage with you today? What gives her the right to stand next to you?" My gaze held on those words for 3 full seconds. He must have sensed something. His eyes snapped open. He grabbed the phone and locked the screen. Then he looked at me. A flash of panic in his eyes. But just as fast, it was gone. A drunk client. Sending random texts. "MHM," I said. The car kept moving through the night. I stared out the window. The city's neon lights bled across the glass, like colorful snakes slithering into the dark. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. In that moment, I simply made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. And for me, that wasn't hard. I came from a finance background. At the company, I didn't run operations directly, but every single fund transfer had to cross my desk for approval. Guming Yuan still had basic trust in me. Or rather, he believed I was oblivious enough, gullible enough, loved him enough to overlook every single red flag. So I quietly went through the company's books. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. All the expenditures, every expense had a plausible explanation. Receipts, all in order. Approval process, perfectly compliant. But I knew, if someone wants to siphon money out of a company, there's always a trace. It's just a matter of how deep it's buried. I spent 3 full months, like a cat lying low in the shadows, checking years of financial records line by line. I locked myself in the study, staring at Excel spreadsheets on the computer screen, comparing column by column, verifying row by row. Sometimes I'd sit there for 4 or 5 hours straight. My eyes burned and watered, but I didn't stop. Those numbers flickered in front of me like strings of code, waiting to be deciphered. The first red flag appeared early last year. A transfer of 3 million from the company account to an entity called Xinyu Culture Media Company, Ltd. Filed under brand promotion service fees. I looked up Xinyuan's business registration. The legal representative was Li Xinxin. Registered address was a virtual office in some commercial building. Reg capital 500K. Paid in, 0. Had no employee social security records. No actual operating premises. Didn't even have a halfway decent website. A shell company. And it took 3 million from us. I kept digging. Second payment. 1.5 million. Third. 2 million. Fourth. 800,000. Over the past year and a half. Gooming Yuan, under various pretexts. Brand promotion, event planning, market research, consulting services. Had moved nearly 10 million out of the company account. All of it into Xinyu Culture Media Company, Limited 10 million. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. A girl's face surfaced in my mind. 24, 25. Sweet smile. On her wrist. A Cartier watch I could never bring myself to buy. On her feet, Jimmy Choo heels. I'd only ever seen in magazines. That money. The money that flowed out of the company I built with my own hands. Turned into expensive dresses. Designer bags, one after another. Beach getaways in Sanya, again and again. Michelin dinners on the Bund. That money was earned from countless all-nighters I pulled with Gooming Yuan. Countless cups of instant noodles. Countless promotion opportunities one gave up. That money was mine, Su Yang's, but I didn't explode, not yet. I would wait. Wait for the perfect moment. Like fishing. The bait was already in the water. The fish had taken the hook, but I couldn't reel it in too fast. Wait until it swallows the hook deeper. Wait till it swims far from shore, until it thinks it's safe. Then, yank it out in one pull. Last autumn. The truth revealed itself in a way I never saw coming. That day, Gooming Yuan left for Shenzhen on a business trip. He was in a rush, and left his tablet at home. He's so guarded. His phone never leaves his hand. And his tablet had a complicated passcode. But he left in such a hurry that day. The tablet was just sitting there on the nightstand, screen up. Perfectly still. I'm not the type to go through other people's things. But that day, something possessed me, and I picked up that tablet. On the lock screen, I typed in his birthday. Wrong. I typed in our wedding anniversary. Wrong. I typed in the company's founding date. Wrong. I paused. Then I typed in another date. The day our company landed its first major client. It unlocked. I don't know what that was supposed to tell me. Maybe, to him, that was the day that actually changed his fate. Maybe that day weighed more in his heart than our wedding ever did. Maybe from the start, he kept things separate. Work was work. What was love, what could be replaced at any moment? And some things he held tight. I opened photos. The pictures were laid out in neat rows. Like doors being pushed open one by one. Behind every door was a world I had never seen before. On a beach in Sanya. He stood in the sand with a girl. The sunset stretched their shadows far across the ground. The girl was wearing a long white dress, her hair lifted by the sea breeze. His arm was around her waist, their faces close together. She was smiling so sweetly. The kind of sweet that isn't posed for the camera. It's the kind that's cultivated. The kind that grows when held with tender care. Keeps you between their teeth, and nurtures you. On Qingdao's pier, she leaned on his shoulder. Holding a stick of cotton candy. He looked down at her. With a tenderness I had never seen before. That tenderness wasn't politeness. It wasn't courtesy. It wasn't gratitude for standing by him while he built his career. It was pure, unreserved affection. Like overflowing water. In Shanghai, against the Bund. They stood at floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lit up. The girl wore a pale pink dress. Her hair softly curled, looking like a flower that had just bloomed. He stood behind her. His arms wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. In that photo, his eyes. A look I haven't seen in 6 years. Not sharp. Not calculating. Not the flawless composure of a negotiation table. But the way a man looks at a woman, unguarded. Utterly, nakedly in love. The most recent photo was taken 2 weeks ago. The two of them sitting in a private booth at some restaurant. Candles, wine, her gaze. Her eyes full of stars. His hand lay on the table. Long fingers, nails neatly trimmed. The wedding band on his ring finger was gone. Tablet down, boiled water. Brewed myself a cup of tea, my favorite, silver needle. Sweet, lingering finish. And drank it, sip by sip. The tea went from scalding to warm. From warm to cold. And I swallowed every last drop. Like I was swallowing something down. Not anger. Not grief. Something deeper than anger or grief. Something heavier. Disappointment, gave all. Bet all, rose together. From something to everything, only to realize he never, not once, truly valued you. It wasn't pain. Pain is temporary. Disappointment is chronic. It builds, little by little. In every late night he didn't answer. In every weekend he dodged with excuses. In every evasive glance. It grows quietly. It doesn't cut like a knife. It seeps in like water. Silent, gradual. And by the time you notice, you're already drowning in it. I stood up. And sent him a message. Gooming Yuan. Let's get divorced. After sending it, I set my phone on the table. And went to shower. I turned the water a little hotter than usual. Steam filled the room, fogging the mirror. I stood under the spray, letting the hot water pour over my head. Over my shoulders, down my back. It ran down my body. Carrying the lather in slow spirals down the drain. I closed my eyes and drew a deep breath. From today on, Suyang is no one's accessory. No one's ATM. No one's stepping stone. As of today, I live only for myself. Gooming Yuan came back the next afternoon. When he opened the door, he didn't look well. There was a look in his eyes I knew all too well. The look of a man backed into a corner. Wary. Tense. Ready to strike. That message of yours? What did you mean? He set his suitcase by the entryway. I stayed seated. A cup of tea in hand, and looked up at him. It means exactly what it says. Divorce. His brows knitted together. The corners of his mouth pulling down. Suyang. What's wrong with you? All this over one text? I already explained it to you. That XIN is just a client. She got drunk and ran her mouth. This isn't about the text. I set my cup down on the coffee table. I stood up and faced him. Gooming Yuan, the photos on your tablet. I saw them. His expression shifted. From guarded to panicked. From fear to something I'd never seen before. Something almost vicious. He opened his mouth like he wanted to speak. But nothing came out. You don't need to explain, I said. I don't want to hear it. I only want to discuss the divorce terms. He stood there in silence for a long time. The clock in the living room ticked on. Every tick felt like a countdown. Outside, birds were singing. Cars passed by. Far off, a construction site pounded piles. But all those sounds felt like they were behind thick glass. They didn't reach inside this house. Inside here, there was only one sound. Between a man and a woman. The sound of something shattering. How do you want to do this? He finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I take what's mine. What isn't mine, I won't touch. He let out a cold laugh. And what exactly is yours? 30% of the company. I paid $3 million for it back then. 6-year appreciation splits. 2 properties. One fully paid by me. That one goes to me. Marital savings, half each. He was quiet for a moment, then said, the company part. I need to discuss it with my lawyer. Fine. You get 3 days. He turned and walked into the study, shutting the door. That night, he didn't come out for dinner. The study light stayed on until dawn. I lay in bed, listening to the occasional keyboard clicks from the next room. And phone rings. Tossing and turning, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I got up to get water from the kitchen. Passing the study, a sliver of light slipped through the door crack. I stood at the door and heard him on the phone, his voice kept low. But in the silence of the deep night, every word was crystal clear. Don't worry. She won't cause any trouble. She doesn't understand the business. I've already handled the finances. Yes. The lawyer's all set too. Rest easy. Your share won't be short a single cent. He was on the phone with that woman called XIN. I stood at the door holding my glass, listening to his hushed reassurances and promises. His gentle voice, just like then. When he said thank you, Roro, to me. Exactly the same. I suddenly found it laughable. This man. Even his betrayal used the same script. Even comforting a woman. Same recycled playbook. I turned and walked back into the bedroom. I set the glass down and closed my eyes. 3 days later, his legal team slid a settlement across the table. 18 pages, one clause mattered, equity. He was clawing back 30% of the founder's shares. Both properties under his name went back to him. I'd get half of our joint savings. Around 2.8 million. Plus a car. For years in that Audi, I left with nothing. His attorney sat across from me, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. A professional smile plastered across his face. Miss Sue, Mr. Gu wants to keep everyone's dignity. This arrangement is reasonable. After all, was built by Mr. Gu's own hands. Your initial investment. The company's costs are recovered. Parting well is best for everyone. I flipped through the settlement. Page by page, line by line. Every clause hit like a slap. He wasn't dividing assets. He was humiliating me. He wanted to erase me from his life completely. As if I had never existed. As if that 3 million had fallen from the sky. As if those 6 years were a dream I had dreamed alone. I set the papers down and looked directly at his attorney. That 3 million to start, whose money? The lawyer froze, smile gone. Gu Mingshan sat across from me, a flicker in his eyes. That was an investment. Investments carry risk. That's how the market works. You understand. Those 2 words, you understand, carried a weightless arrogance. A tone of scraps from above. Don't get it? I'll teach you. I laughed softly. It was barely audible. Like a feather falling on still water. Almost impossible to hear. But I saw Gu Mingshuan's expression shift. He expected tears, not my laugh. To lose control. To slam the table. To curse him for his ingratitude. To tear up the settlement and throw it in his face. And if I had, he would have won. He could stand in front of everyone and say, see? Suyang is nothing but a crazy woman. I gave her reasonable terms, and she still wants more. But I didn't. I closed the settlement, laid it flat on the table, and stood up. I grabbed my bag, glanced 2 seconds. But I hoped he would remember it. It wasn't the look of an abandoned woman. It was the look of someone about to strike back. I'll sign, I said. He froze for a beat. He probably didn't see it coming. Me agreeing so readily. He slid a pen across the table. I took the pen and signed my name on the signature line. Suyang. 2 characters, written with perfect, steady precision. No trembling. No hesitation. Once it was done, I set the pen down on the table, turned, and walked out. He thought I was surrendering. He had no idea. That very afternoon, after signing, I had already scheduled a meeting with Attorney Shen. Attorney Shen's full name is Shen Jiawen. She was my college acquaintance, 2 years ahead of me. Now she's a partner at a law firm. She's a sharp commercial litigator. Known for clear reasoning. We'd known each other 10 years. Close personally, but never worked together. Not until 3 months ago, when I saw those photos on my tablet. That very night, I called her. Jiawen, I need you to do something for me. What is it? A divorce. Not any divorce. I want back everything that's mine. She was silent on the other end for 2 seconds, then said, "Come see me. Bring all the documents." From that day on, I spent 3 months doing one thing. Preparing. I shut myself in the study. Operating like a precision instrument. I organized the original transfer records. 3 million. From my personal account to Guming Yuan's corporate account. The bank statements were crystal clear. Time, amount, purpose. Every single field, complete and intact. I found the original draft of the partnership agreement. The one from our startup. He signed it. And mine. In black and white, it stated, Suyang contributes 3 million RMB in capital, securing a 30% equity stake in the company. I pulled 6 years of financial audit reports. Every year's revenue, profits, dividends, asset appreciation. All documented and verifiable. And I did one more thing. I traced where that 10 million went. Xian Yuan Cultural Media Company, Ltd. Legal representative, Li Xian, 24 years old. Household registered in a third-tier city. After college, she did copywriting for 6 months, then went solo. She founded this company. This company had no actual business operations. Its only client was Guming Yuan's company. In a year and a half, Guming Yuan funneled funds to Xian Yuan under various pretexts, totaling 9,800,000. And that money, from Xian Yuan's corporate account, was then transferred into Li Xian's personal account. Then it became the down payment on an apartment. And a Porsche. That became a down payment on an apartment, a Porsche. Countless luxury purchases and trips abroad. I organized all of this material, one document at a time, and put it into a blue folder. On the cover, I printed 4 words with a label maker, evidence materials. That blue folder was my weapon. 3 months later, to the day, the divorce certificate was issued. The freeze order came down as well. I sat in the taxi for a moment. Taxi stopped. I paid and got out. The March wind carried a slight chill as it blew past. I pulled my coat tighter and walked into the building. The elevator doors opened just as my phone rang. It was my assistant, Xiao He. Ms. Su. Mr. Yi over at Stellar Bay says this afternoon. Key client coming. Cash offer, 50 million. He'd like you to be there if possible. What time? 2. Fine. I'll be there at 2. I hung up and walked into my office. I handled the morning emails and signed 2 contracts. I had a cup of coffee. At 1:50, I picked up my car keys. I went downstairs and drove to the Stellar Bay Sales Center. The Stellar Bay Sales Center was built halfway up the mountain. Glass walls, 6-meter lobby. The scale model was incredibly detailed. Every villa's orientation, the green belts, the water features, all clearly marked. I said a quick hello to Mr. Yi. Then found a seat toward the back. Agent brought water. I whispered. Don't make a fuss over me. Just handle things as usual. At 2:37, a black Maybach pulled up at the entrance. The door opened. The first person to step out was a girl. A pale pink dress, softly curled ends, and on her wrist, a rose gold Cartier watch. She wore stiletto heels. The moment she stepped inside, she swept her eyes across the lobby. The corners of her mouth lifted with anticipation. A thrill only a first-time visitor knows. She tried hard to act like it was all familiar. But she couldn't hide the light in her eyes. Li Xinxin. Gu Mingyuan followed behind her. He changed into a dark suit and was holding his car keys. As he walked in, he leaned down and said something to her. She laughed. The two of them headed toward the scale model. They didn't look my way. I set the water bottle on the table. And didn't move. Sales agent Xiaoli went up to greet them. She showed the layout, 5 beds, 3 lounges, 4 baths. 820 square meters. Private pool and garden. Fully finished. All materials. Top of the line imported. From the viewing deck. Mountain and skyline views. It's the last unit in the building. Total price, 51 million. Li Xinxin walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazed out for a moment, then turned back. She grabs Gu Mingyuan by the wrist. Her voice is soft, with a coy, wheedling lilt at the end. Mingyuan, I love it. Let's just pay all cash, swipe the card. Gu Mingyuan glances down at her. He nods, pulls out a wallet. He fishes out a black card. He hands it to Xiaoli. Try this one first, ICBC. The limit's enough. Xiaoli takes the card. I see clearly from across. Xiaoli works the card terminal for about 3 minutes. Then he walks back, slow steps, and the smile on his face is starting to crack. He stops in front of Gu Mingyuan. Lowering his voice, he says, Sir, I'm very sorry. This card is showing as frozen. Could you try another one? Gu Mingyuan's brow tightens. He pulls another card from his wallet and hands it over. Xiaoli takes it and returns to the front desk. This time he's back in a minute and a half. Sir, this one too. It shows frozen. Could you try another? Li Xinxin tugs at Gu Mingyuan's sleeve. What's going on? Gu Mingyuan ignores her. He pulls out the remaining 3 cards from his wallet. He places them in Xiaoli's hands. Try them one by one. Xiaoli takes the cards off. He runs them through the card terminal one after another. I sit there, watching his shoulders sink a little lower with every swipe. Finally, he gathers the cards and turns back, walking very slowly. He stops in front of Gu Mingyuan. He holds all 5 cards out together and says, head lowered, Sir. I'm very sorry. All 5 of your cards are showing frozen. Call your bank to confirm. The lobby goes quiet for a second. Like something dropped from a height, into water. No sound, just ripples spreading outward in rings. Li Xinxin's voice cuts through first. How is that possible? Is your machine broken? All 5 cards failed? Xiaoli looks down. No issues today. Call your bank. To check your account status. Gu Mingyuan's expression darkens. He pulls out his phone and walks to a corner to make a call. His back is to me, his voice held very low. I can't see the look on his face, only the knuckles of the hand holding the phone, exposed past his cuff. He pales, hangs up. He returns to Li Xinxin's side. Li Xinxin leans in. What did they say? He doesn't answer. He just sweeps his eyes across the lobby. His gaze swept over from the model display. It locked onto mine. He froze for a split second. Like he never expected to see me here. I set down the folder in my hand and stood up. I walked a few steps toward him. Mr. Yi followed and asked quietly. Should I step away? I waved it off. No, it's fine. You go ahead. Suyang. He spoke, voice low, reined in. You know about the cards. Not a question. A statement. I stood 2 meters from him, my tone perfectly level. In this hall with its 6-meter ceilings. Every word carried with perfect clarity. Those 5 cards. 3 are linked to the corporate account under your name. The other 2 are your personal accounts. The funds in those 2 personal accounts. Part of it traces back to company cash flow. It falls under commingled funds pending audit. This morning, the court issued an asset freeze order. Your lawyer should receive the notice this afternoon. Gu Mingyuan. My voice stayed steady. That 3 million from back when we started the company. It came from my personal account. The transfer receipts. Bank statements. The draft partnership agreement signed by you and me. I've kept all of it. My lawyer has already petitioned the court to confirm the legal nature of that capital contribution and to determine ownership of the funds you withdrew under your own name over the past 6 years of operations. Freezing those cards today, it's just the first procedural step. There's more coming. Tell your lawyer to be ready. Li Xinxin stood off to the side, her face still frozen in a smile she hadn't managed to retract. Her gaze darted toward Gu Mingyuan. Mingyuan, I love that villa. Didn't you say all cash was no problem? Gu Mingyuan ignored her. He stared at me. What do you want? I turned, picked up the blue folder from the table, tucked it under my arm. Then I turned back to face him. Gu Mingyuan. What I want is simple. 3M plus 6 years interest. The transfer you moved into Li Xinxin's name during the marriage. And the dividends you pocketed personally. During the company's operating period. Have your lawyer add it all up. Pay back what's owed. Return what was taken. Refuse, and we go to court. He stayed rooted in place. The look on his face flickered between emotions, rage, resentment, panic, fear. Then it sank. Sank into that expression I know all too well. The look he gets when he's at the table, and the other side is stronger. Frustration, swallowed anger. Nothing left but silence. Li Xingyuan finally sensed something was off. She tugged at Gu Mingyuan's arm. Her voice rose. Hey, say something, will you? Are we buying the villa or not? Gu Mingyuan's gaze landed on her face. It lingered for a second, then slid away. He said nothing. I didn't look at them again. I said goodbye to President Yi. Unit 1, Building C, no rush. Keep pushing other lists. Then I pushed open the glass door and walked out. The parking lot wind carried a hint of pine from the hills. It was cool against my face. The sunlight slanted down hard, stretching my shadow long across the ground. I stood by the car door for a moment. I didn't get in right away. 6 years ago, he spread out that proposal. Sat across from me and said, Suyang, you should invest. I'll give you the biggest share. I believed him back then. Not just that the 3 million could double. I believed in the S he talked about for the future. Believed the light in those eyes was aimed at me. Later I understood. That light was always shining on whatever had the most value. It's just that the most valuable thing changed every so often. I should have known better. What he said back then wasn't a promise. It was a price quote. The engine started. The car pulled out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, the glass facade of the stellar base sales hall glowed in the sunset. Reflecting orange-red light, receding bit by bit. Shrinking to a blur, vanishing behind the curve. On the road, Xiaohe called. Ms. Su. Attorney Shin said everything's in place with the court. Mediation can open next week. He's asking how to schedule your time. Also, President Yi asked your feedback on the site visit. I held the wheel. Let Attorney Shin decide on his end. For President Yi's side, I'll send an email later. Oh. And please replace the dying pot hose in the stairwell corner. Get one that loves sunlight. Put it somewhere it can actually get sun. Yes, Miss Su. Xiaohe paused. One more thing. Mr. Gu's assistant just messaged. Mr. Gu wants to set up a time to talk. His words were private talk, not through lawyers. I waited at the light. I watched the cars ahead move forward one by one. My voice was flat. Tell him we can talk about anything. Have his lawyer call mine. Nothing to discuss privately. Understood. I'll respond now. Green light. Car moved on. The trees along both sides swayed gently in the wind. A few leaves landed on the windshield, stuck, then wind swept them off, leaving no trace. I thought of my mother on my wedding day. Leave no trace. Reminds me of my mom on my wedding day. She held my hand and said, Roro. Marry only if self-reliant. Stand firm in life's storms. Later I realized I'd been standing on someone else. 6 years on shifting sand. It is now my own ground, solid under every step. No one can take it away. Back at the office, Xiaohe set the new pot hose. By the floor-to-ceiling window, the leaves were glossy, glowing in the sunset. I sat down at my desk. Pulled a new project design proposal in front of me. Picked up a marker and, next to a line on the blueprint, added a note. Then set the pen down. Leaned back in my chair and gazed out the window for a while. The city lights came on, one by one, from the tops of towers downward, from the distance inward, finally merging into a warm, glowing sea. Spreading across the night. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Suyang. About today. Can we meet? The bank said. Frozen funds, accounts locked tight. The company's projects will collapse. You know that. If the company goes under, it helps no one. For the sake of 6 years between us, give me a chance to sit down and talk. Guming Yuan. I read it once. Set the phone on the desk. Didn't reply. 6 years between us. When he said those 4 words, did he ever stop to think, in those 6 years? How many nights he stayed out till dawn? How many times he lied to me? How many times he took what was mine and wired it into another woman's account? Did he ever think? When he held Xin, watching the sunset on a Sanya beach, I was in the office. Numbers till midnight? Did he see? When he swiped his card to buy Xin a Cartier watch, that money included the profit from my 3 million principal? 6 years apart, can he speak? My phone buzzed again. A second message. Suyang. I know I was wrong. But I'm begging you. At least unfreeze the company accounts. Employees need their salaries. Suppliers need to be paid. If this keeps up, the company is finished. We can talk this through slowly. Don't push things to the edge. I smirked, not amused, at the screen. A cold, evaluating look. He was begging me. Guming Yuan, the man who, in the divorce settlement, told me leave there, called it investing. Investments come with risks. The man who held Xin after the 5-star hotel annual gala and said, right in front of me, without Roro, I wouldn't be where I am today. He was begging me. He wasn't asking me to let him go. I picked up my phone and typed 4 words, I'll see you in mediation. I sent it, then turned off my phone and stared out the window. The city lights were growing denser, like a giant web, covering the entire city, and beneath every light, there was a story. Some were beginning, some were ending. Some were being rewritten. My story was being rewritten. Over the next week, my life ran like a precision machine. Every gear locked together flawlessly. Business at the company by day, and at night, I'd go over the case with lawyer Shen. The court's asset freeze order had already taken effect. The 5 bank cards under Guming Yuan's name were all frozen. A third of the company's corporate accounts had also been sealed. The part involving commingled funds. Lawyer Shen told me that Guming Yuan's side had already received the court notice. His legal team was scrambling to put together a response. But based on the evidence we had so far, their room to maneuver was extremely limited. Suyang, Shen Jiawen said on the phone, a rare trace of laughter in her voice. You prepared far too well this time. Wire transfer receipts, partnership agreements, articles of incorporation, board resolutions, financial audit reports, capital flow charts. You even traced the source of the down payment on the apartment under Li Xinxin's name. When his lawyers saw those documents, their faces soured. That was my money, I said. I'm simply taking it back. Next Wednesday, 9 in the morning. Court mediation. Be ready. Fine. After hanging up, I stood at my office floor-to-ceiling window, watching the traffic below. This city is too big. Big enough that a person disappearing into it is like a drop of water falling into the ocean. Not even a ripple. But some people don't disappear. The ones who step on you to climb higher. The ones who take your money to keep another woman. The ones who turn their backs and walk away when you need them the most. They stay in your memory like a thorn. If you don't pull it out, it hurts forever. I decided to pull this thorn out. Wednesday morning, I put on a dark blue suit and light makeup. My hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. The mirror woman's eyes were calm, lips pressed tight. I looked like a freshly sharpened blade. Sharp. Cold, ready for anything. Shen Jiawen was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She was wearing a black lawyer's robe, holding a briefcase. She gave a slight nod when she saw me coming. Ready. As we walked into the mediation room, Gu Mingyuan and his lawyer were already seated across from us. He wore a dark gray suit, but his complexion was off, dark shadows under his eyes. Like he hadn't slept well in days. When he saw me walk in, His gaze lingered on my face for a split second, then shifted away. That look was complicated. Anger. Resentment. A cornered man's desperation. There was something I'd never seen on his face before. Fear. He was afraid. Not of me. Of losing. Afraid of losing the company. Afraid of losing the money. Afraid of losing the glittering world he'd spent 6 years building. In that world, he was a successful entrepreneur. The industry's rising star. Maybach, mansion. With a young, beautiful woman on his arm. The winner. And now, that world was collapsing. And standing across from the wreckage was me, the woman he thought he could throw away like garbage. The woman who had stood by him through the hardest years. The mediator was a female judge in her 50s. Judge Zhou. Seasoned, by the look of it. She spoke at an unhurried pace. She flipped through the materials from both sides, then looked up. Her eyes moving back and forth. Between Gu Mingyuan and me. I've reviewed both submissions. Ms. Su Yang's evidence is exceptionally thorough. Including the 3M receipt, partnership agreement, the articles of incorporation, the forensic audit report, and documentation regarding Mr. Gu Mingyuan's use of shell companies during the marriage to divert marital assets. As for Mr. Gu Mingyuan's side, she glanced at his lawyer. Do you have anything to add? Gu Mingyuan's lawyer was a sharp-looking man in his 40s. Mr. Liu. Gold-rimmed glasses. Shrewd. He cleared his throat. Judge Zhou, our position is that Ms. Su Yang's original 3 million capital contribution was already recouped through dividends during business operations. As for this alleged diversion of marital assets, we maintain that these were legitimate business transactions. There is no asset diversion here. Shen Jiawen smiled. Not a polite smile. The kind that says I knew. You'd say that. Mr. Liu. Please review Exhibit 3 submitted by our side. The business registration records of Xinyuan Culture Media Company, Ltd. Bank statements and fund flow charts of this company. It has no actual business operations. Its only client is Mr. Gu Mingyuan's company. Over the course of a year and a half, Mr. Gu Mingyuan, under the guise of brand promotion and event planning, transferred a total of 9,800,000 to Xinyuan. That money went from Xinyuan's corporate account into Ms. Li Xinxin's personal account. Then it was used to buy real estate, vehicles, and personal luxury goods. So, Attorney Liu, does that sound like a normal business relationship to you? Attorney Liu's expression shifted. Well, we would need to verify further. No need to verify. Shen Jiawen pulled a stack of documents from her briefcase. This is the purchase contract and payment receipt for the apartment under Ms. Li Xinxin's name. The down payment was 3,200,000. The source was a transfer from Xinyuan. This is the invoice for the Porsche. 1,600,000. Same source. A transfer from Xinyuan. These are Ms. Li Xinxin's credit card statements from the past year. Average monthly spending of 150,000. The payment account? Also Xinyuan. She laid the documents on the table one by one, like dealing cards. Each one landing on the table with precision. Each one making a crisp sound. Attorney Liu, what else do you need to verify? Gu Mingyuan sat across from me. Hands on the table, fingers trembling slightly. He kept his head down. He didn't look at me. Didn't look at his attorney either. He stared at those documents on the table, as if trying to burn holes through them with his eyes. Judge Zhou glanced at Gu Mingyuan. Her voice was calm. Mr. Gu Mingyuan, do you have anything to say about this evidence? He stayed silent for a long time. The clock in the mediation room ticked away. Every tick hammering at his nerves. Finally, he lifted his head and looked at me. There was no anger in that look. No resentment. Just a tired, resigned emptiness. I know. Judge Zhou nodded. Very well. We'll begin mediation now. The mediation went more smoothly than I expected. Not because his conscience kicked in, but because Shen Jiawen's evidence was too thorough. Every transfer record, every fund flow, every legal basis, like a brick. Brick by brick, building a wall. Gu Mingyuan and his lawyer were backed against that wall. No way out. The final mediation result was Gu Mingyuan returns 3 million in principal to Suyang, plus 6 years of interest at the statutory rate. Total assets, 4,320,000. Returned at 50%, 4,900,000. The 30% company equity, based on the original capital contribution ratio, was reconfirmed. Suyang retains that equity stake and the corresponding dividend rights of the two properties. The one where Suyang paid the down payment and monthly mortgage, that goes to Suyang. Add all those numbers together, and the total Gu Mingyuan has to pay is nearly 4 times more than what was in his original walkaway with nothing agreement. At the signing, Shen Jiawen said beside me, Suyang, when you signed that agreement back then, I didn't quite understand. Now I do. You had already calculated everything, hadn't you? I set the pen down. He thought what I signed was surrender. Actually, what I signed was giving him one last chance to abandon reason. He abandoned it. So we do this by the rules. Shen Jiawen smiled and nodded. Brilliant move. I stayed silent, gathering papers. Stood up, and walked to the window. It was a clear day outside. Wind swirled the last dead leaves. They hit the glass, blew off. Distant sky was spotless, freshly washed, almost painfully blue. Coming out of the courthouse, I called my mother. Mom, I'll return this weekend. Taking you to your favorite place. It's been a while. On the other end, she asked. Is everything taken care of? Yeah, I said. All done. She paused, then, silly girl. Why wait? Why did you carry all that alone? If you're ever hurting, come home. Mom's here. I know. I will from now on. I hung up. I stood on the courthouse steps and took a deep breath. The March air carried a fresh scent of soil and grass. That's the smell of spring arriving. I suddenly remembered something. Last autumn, on that night when I saw those photos on my tablet, at the table, finishing silver needle tea, I said one thing to myself. It was, Suyang, from today on, you live only for yourself. And now, I've done it. Later, Xiaohe told me that Gu Mingyuan's company, because of the frozen accounts and broken capital chain, lost several major clients. Employee wages were unpaid for 2 months. The core team is mostly gone. We can't pay our suppliers. We've been sued multiple times. Companies from a supply chain upstart with 0.2 billion annual turnover to a cautionary tale for the entire industry. And Lixian? The moment Gu Mingyuan's accounts were frozen, she listed that apartment online immediately. She sold the Porsche and swapped it for a plain Toyota. She sent Gu Mingyuan one message. It said just one thing, we're done. I don't want to be with a broke man. Gu Mingyuan replied. I don't know the exact words, but Xiaohe said. That night Gu Mingyuan sat alone in his office and drank through the entire night. The next morning, when the cleaning lady went in, she saw over a dozen beer cans on the floor and some shattered glass. He smashed a photo frame. Inside that frame was a picture of him and Lixian at the beach in Sanya. And that frame? He bought it with money he stole from me. As for that villa in Stellar Bay, Building C, Unit 1, I heard from Mr. Yi that it sat on the market for another half month. It was bought by another couple with all the money. The woman said the lighting was good. The husband said he wanted the private pool. The day they signed, they were both beaming. The one Lixian wanted, she never got it. And that development I designed and invested in myself? Every unit sold, my cut comes back straight into my account. Until the day it's all paid back. Some debts always get settled. It's just a matter of sooner or later. And the outcome changes. One day, Xiaohe put a new project proposal on my desk. A Mountain View boutique hotel. The client wants a sunrise viewing deck and a courtyard with a swing. I picked up a marker and drew a single arc across the blueprint. One fluid stroke. No pause. No hesitation. Just like everything I've already put behind me. The past is gone. That pothose plant is thriving by the floor-to-ceiling window, leaves glossy and full. They catch the sunlight. I watered it. I turned it around so every leaf could get some sun. Xiaohe stood beside me, watching me fuss over the plant. He hesitated. Miss Su, Mr. Gu has called again. Multiple times. He says he wants to see you. I set the watering can down and dusted off my hands. What does he want? He said. I want to apologize to you. He knows he was wrong and says he shouldn't have done that. Treated you that way. He also said, Xiaohe paused. He also said Li Xinxin broke up with him. He's alone now. He wants to start over with you. I turned and looked at Xiaohe. Xiaohe looked a little nervous. Probably watching for my reaction. Start over. I repeated those words, then laughed. A real laugh this time. Not cold. Not mocking. Light. From somewhere deep inside. Like watching a farce. Tell him this. I picked up the marker from the desk and kept drawing that arc on the blueprint. Suyang is a closed chapter. If he wants to apologize, he can call my lawyer. If he wants to start over, he can find someone willing to start over with him. Here? There are only contracts and projects. No old feelings. Xiaohe nodded and walked out. I leaned back and stared out the window for a while. City lights flickered on, from towers down. Distant lights drew near, a warm sea spreading across the night. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Suyang. I know you won't forgive me, but I still need to tell you. Li Xinxin is gone. The company is nearly finished. I have nothing left. You won. I glanced at the message. No reply. Set the phone down. Picked up the marker. Kept drawing that arc. You won. Those 2 words. He probably thought they were a compliment. But to me, they mean nothing. This was never a competition. There is no winning or losing. This is a woman taking back what belongs to her. Taking back her money. Taking back her dignity. Taking back the self that was slowly eaten away inside that marriage. I didn't win. I just stopped losing. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Suyang. I want to see you one last time. Just once. At the Japanese place where we first met. I won't beg or cling. I just want to say it to your face. I'm sorry. I picked up the phone. Stared at those words on the screen for a long time. The Japanese place where we first met. A quiet little spot tucked deep in an alley. A paper lantern hung by the door. Push it open. And there were tatami mats and low tables. That day, he wore a blue cotton shirt, his tie slightly crooked. He spread his business proposal across the table, eyes full of light. He said, Suyang, you put in 3 million. I'll give you 30% equity stake. Back then, his hands were warm. His eyes were real. His smile had no calculation in it. But that was 6 years ago. 6 years is enough time to go from nothing to a fortune. Enough time to turn someone from genuine to a complete liar. Enough time for a woman to go from believing in love to believing only in herself. I typed 4 words. Sent. No need. After sending it, I blocked that number. Outside the window, the city night stretched like a massive oil painting. Every light was a story. Some just beginning. Some ending. Some being rewritten. And my story had turned to a new page. A page without Gu Mingyuan on it. Without Li Xinxin. Without 3 million. Without a divorce settlement. Without a freeze order. Without the Stellar Bay Villa. Just me, Suyang, 32, Chief Financial Officer, a marker in my hand. A blank sheet of paper in front of me. Nothing on it yet. But I know exactly what I'm going to draw. Then one day, at the mall, I ran into an old friend. Someone Gu Mingyuan and I both knew. She'd been a bridesmaid at our wedding. She saw me, paused for a second, then walked over and took my hand. Looked me up and down. Suyang. You've changed so much. What is it? I can't quite place it. You used to smile all the time, but that smile was, how do I put it? It was painted on. Not something that came from inside. Now you barely smile, but the way you stand. It's solid. Like a tree with deep roots. I smiled a little. Maybe. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. So, that thing with Gu Mingyuan. I heard about it. His company went under. Now he's working some low-level job at a small firm. Li Xinxin left too. I heard she's with some import-export guy now. Do you ever feel sorry about it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. Not even a little, I said. She looked at me and nodded. Good. Su-young, you deserve better. I patted her hand and thanked her. Then turned and walked away, leaving them all. A light rain was falling outside. I didn't have an umbrella. Stood at the entrance for a while. Drops hit the ground, kicking up tiny splashes. The air carried that damp scent of earth. A thought suddenly came to me. Back then, when Gu Mingyuan and I got married, the wedding was on an outdoor lawn. It drizzled that day too. Not heavy, fine and soft. Like a thin veil. He stood in the rain, holding my hands. Reciting a very long vow. I can't recall the exact words anymore. Only the last line. Su-young, I'll make you happy forever. No umbrella that day. Neither did he. We stood in the rain, soaked. Our clothes soaked through. But both of us were smiling so hard. Back then, I thought that's what happiness looked like. Someone who'll brave the rain with you, stand by you. In the wind and rain. Never leaving. But later I understood. True devotion isn't standing through one storm together. It's still choosing to stand beside you after the rain has stopped. In the sunlight. He couldn't even stay for that one rain. I stood at the mall entrance, watching the rain fade little by little. The last wisp of rain dissolving into the air. The clouds split open, sunlight squeezing through the crack. Falling on the wet ground, reflecting a golden glow. I stepped into the sunlight and headed toward the parking lot. My heels clicking against the wet pavement, sharp and clear. Step by step. Steady. Just like my life now. That night, I was sorting through things at home. On the bottom shelf of the bookcase, I dug out an old photo album. My wedding photos with Gu Mingyuan. A thick album. The cover stamped in gold lettering. It read, with this hand, I hold yours. Till the end. Me in the photo, wearing a white wedding gown. Leaning on him, smiling till my eyes curved. Him in a black tuxedo, arm around my waist. His chin resting on top of my head. Smiling with a gentle certainty. Back then, we probably truly believed we would make it to the end. I turned another page. Photos from our honeymoon in Europe. Under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. He held me and kissed me in the sunset. On a gondola in Venice. I leaned against his shoulder. He looked down at me. His eyes full of adoration. In front of the Trevi fountain in Rome. We stood with our backs to the water and tossed a coin together. I turned to the last page. Our first anniversary photo. Taken on the balcony at home. He was in loungewear. I had my hair in a ponytail. The two of us sitting on wicker chairs. Each holding a cup of coffee. On the back of the photo. He had written a line in pen, 1 year. Thank you. Roro. There are still so many years ahead. We'll walk them together. I closed the album and rested it on my lap. I sat long. Moonlight fell through the window. Silver white. Cold. I looked down at the album. My fingers traced the cover once. Then I stood up. Walked to the bookcase and shoved that album to the very back. No throwing. No burning. No dramatic break from the past. Just put it somewhere I'd never have to see it. Let it sit there quietly. Because those days were real. Those smiles were real. That coin tossed into the wishing fountain was real. It's just the person who made the wish that changed. I don't need to deny the past. I just need to accept it. That past is gone. After that, Shen Jiawen asked me to dinner. A quiet Western restaurant. She sat across from me. A glass of red wine in her hand, looking at me with a faint smile. Su-young, you've been looking good lately. Not bad. How's the company? Fine. The Stellar Bay project wrapped up. Profits came in 15% above projections. Handled a mountain boutique hotel. Stunning views. Good. She took a sip of wine and paused. What about Guming Yuan? Do you know how he's doing these days? No. He's come to me several times, asking me to pass along a message. He wants to see you. I set down my knife and fork and looked at her. Jiawen, you're my lawyer. And my friend. You should know I don't want to see him. I know. She nodded. So I didn't agree. But I have to tell you, he doesn't look good. Lost a lot of weight. Gray hair now. He says he's working as a sales rep at some small company. 20,000 a month. Can barely make rent. I was quiet for a moment. He deserves it, I said. Shen Jiawen glanced at me. She didn't argue. I picked up my glass and took a sip. The wine rolled around my mouth. When I swallowed, there was a hint of bitterness. Jiawen, you know what? If that divorce settlement he handed me back then. If he'd split fairly, not demanded I go empty-handed. Even if he'd just given me the half I was owed, I'd have signed and left. Never pushed it further. And walked away quietly. Gone our separate ways for good. I wouldn't have traced where that 10 million went. I wouldn't have filed for the asset freeze order. I wouldn't have watched him grovel at Stellar Bay. But he didn't. He wanted me out with nothing. He wanted to erase 6 years of my effort, 6 years of my youth, 6 years of love, erased. He thought I'd take it. Thought I'd sign through my tears. Thought I'd buy his line. It was an investment. Investment carries risk. He was wrong. I set my glass down on the table. Staring at the red streaks clinging to the rim, I said slowly. His mistake wasn't the affair. Wasn't hiding assets. Wasn't the lies. His mistake was underestimating me. He thought Su Yang was just a woman who could do the math. A woman who'd fall apart without a marriage. A clawless woman, easily discarded. He forgot. That 3 million. I earned every last cent of it. 30% of the company. I bought that with my brain. And where that 10 million went? I spent 3 months without sleep to find out. He thought business, he gambled with me. Betting I was stupid. Betting I was weak. Betting I loved him. Loved him enough to walk away with nothing. He lost that bet. Shen Jiawen looked at me. Silent for a long time. Then she raised her glass and touched it gently against mine. Su Yang. Here's to every woman who was ever underestimated. I smiled. Lifted my glass. Took a sip. That night, back home, I stood out on the balcony. Looking at the city in the distance. A million lights. Like a golden sea. And under every one of those lights, there was a story. Some were tragedies. Some were comedies. Unfinished drafts. My story? It's a comedy. Not the loud, dramatic kind. Not some big happy ending. It's the kind where a woman at her lowest didn't abandon herself. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't beg anyone for help. She just quietly, calmly, step by step, pulled herself out of the mud. Washed it all off. Put on clean clothes. Stepped back into the light. And then she smiled. Not a bitter smile. Not a forced one. A real one. The kind that grows from deep inside. Because she knew. From now on, she would never stand on someone else's back again. Her roots were in her own ground. Let the wind blow. Let the rain come. She won't fall. I turned and walked back inside. Closed the balcony door. My phone screen lit up. A message from Xiaohe. Ms. Su. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The new client's coming in for a meeting. Also, the final payment for the Stellar Bay project has come through. Amount, 6.2 million. And from Attorney Shen's office? An email just arrived. Saying Mr. Guming Yuan's final settlement payment has been deposited into your account. I replied with one word. Good. Then I turned off my phone. Lay in bed. Closed my eyes. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, drawing a silver-white line across the floor. That strip of light moved slowly, from floor to wall, from wall to ceiling, and finally, faded into darkness. I fell asleep. No dreams. The next morning, I woke early. 6 o'clock. The sky just barely light. I put on my running clothes. Downstairs, ran 3 kilometers, cherry blooms. Pink-white petals covered the ground. Soft underfoot. Ran under cherries, petals flew. They swirled and fell behind me. Back home. Took a shower. Changed my clothes and stood in front of the mirror. I looked at my reflection. Young, 32. Eyes bright. Skin clear. The corners of my lips slightly upturned. I looked like a freshly sharpened blade. Sharp. Gleaming. Ready for everything. I picked up the folder from the table. Walked out. The elevator doors opened. Xiaohe was already waiting downstairs. She held a cup of coffee. Saw me. Smiled and handed it over. Miss Su, your latte. Less sugar, extra milk. Thank you. I took a sip. The temperature was just right. The taste was just right. Let's go, I said. Busy day ahead. We stepped out of the building. Sunlight hit my face. I squinted and took a deep breath. March air. Lovely. Merged into rush hour. Outside the window, the city was waking up. Office tower lights flickered on one by one. More and more cars filled the streets. Pedestrians hurried along their way. Everyone rushing toward their own destination. My destination was my company. The company I built with my own hands. 6 years of my life. 3 million in initial capital. My own career. Not an accessory to anyone. Not anyone's ATM. Not anyone's stepping stone. It's mine. The car stopped at a red light. I turned to look outside. There was a flower shop on the corner. Crowded with all kinds of flowers. Red roses. White lilies. Yellow sunflowers. Purple lavender. The owner was watering a bouquet. Water droplets rolled over the petals, glinting in the sunlight. I suddenly thought of the pothose plant I'd replaced. That dying pothose. I swapped it for a sun-loving variety. Put it somewhere it could catch the sun. Now it's thriving. Leaves glossy and full. Everyone stretching toward the light. People are the same. You have to put yourself where the sun can reach you. You have to grow toward the light. And on your own ground, sink your roots deep. Green. Car moved. I leaned back. Closed my eyes. A faint smile at the corner of my lips. A new day had begun.